Hi, Dr. Hart. This is my week 2 summary presentation of what is different. Throughout the articles and the research that we've done this week, I really got to see this from a whole different perspective. I've never really indulged in the studies of gender, and I always knew that media did play a form in how people see one another. And some people look at pretty girls, oh, I want to be this pretty girl, and that affects them in such ways that they go to drastic trying to change their body because their bodies are not equally represented on television to show them that it's okay to be who you are. So, gender roles are based on different expectations that individuals, groups, and society have based on what society values and believe tell us that we should be. Gender roles can be produced by interactions between individuals and communities and their environment and so forth and so on. They give us like these little clues of what sort of behavior is believed to be appropriate for that type of sex. And when one go against that, well, they're then deemed, hey, you're different. You're not what society tells you have to be. And who's to say that that's right and who's to say that that's wrong? There's nothing wrong with absolutely fitting into what, hey, your gender, what you believe gender should be. I was reading a research article by Amy Blackstone, and we started labeling what is considered a man, what is considered a woman. What type of traits do a man and a woman have? We've talked about this consistently, where men is deemed as leaders. They're more powerful, they're masculine, they're assertive, they're the breadwinner, the head of the house, and they're well respected, while women are perceived as passive, nurturing. They work full time as an at-home mommy or some sort of natural. They're not on the same level as a man. And then we go towards and look in the workplace. So women in the workplace are often seen as the secretaries, while the men are automatically thought of as, oh, he is one of the managers or he is an executive. But let the roles switch for a moment, and when you break down those barriers of what society says men and women are, let's just say the woman, she is the executive. She is the breadwinner of the family, and the man, he's a stay at home mom or stay at home dad, which is there's nothing wrong with that. But some men and society may deem that man to be weak, and it can be emasculating to him to have his wife make more money than him. I'd also like to point out that I feel like religion can play a part in gender roles. For as in the Bible, 1 Corinthians 13 and 11 says, when I was a child, I talked like a child, I reasoned like a child, but when I became a man, I put away those childlike things. So that's saying, when you become a man, you have to shut the door on the childish acts that one may do. You have to step up. You have to be powerful. Going back to the other roles that we said, what a man should be: powerful, assertive. He should take care of the home and things of that nature. But I do feel like religion plays a part in the gender role. Now, as far as where differences come in, I feel like differences come in when stereotypes are born, when you are not what society tell you it is acceptable, then you are deemed different. You're categorized in some sort of stereotype. So let's say for a man, if he's not tough, strong, and assertive, he's weak. He is a wuss. He's not respected. But who's to say that that man is weak? Maybe he's just not assertive. Maybe he likes to take on a feminine way, and that shouldn't deem him less than who he is. But society says that because this is the rule that's laid out, and if you're not like this, then you are different. Common gender stereotype can be that males are not as emotional as females are. They do not talk about their feelings. They do not communicate well. But on the other hand, females are commonly stereotyped as being irrational and sometimes over emotional. Which brings me to, one of the articles we read, one of our required readings about fathers and sons and the distance. And that article, they go on to say how, a man can be overjoyed when he find out that the woman is having a boy, a baby boy. But then, after they get home, he starts to pull away, and that child starts to pull towards him. Like, they want that father-son bond that never really happens throughout the relationship, because a man pulls away and he go indulge in work and things of that matter, and it kind of go on and harm and hurt the child emotionally, because he's then being taught, okay, I can't show emotion. I have to be tough. I have to work. I have to do all of this. And so when his family is born, he has that role that his father taught him. And the study also shows that, many men say, well, I wish I would have had a closer bond with my dad. I wish this and this would have happened, but yet and still, they may be already repeating that same cycle with their kid. But then we see the other article about moms and sons and how she's longing on to be close to him, which brings us back to how moms are so nurturing, and they really don't want their son to go, because mommies have this close bond with them. But then that son, he starts to pull away and like, mom, I have to be a man. I have to go out and I have to do this. I can't be a little boy anymore like you would like me to stay. And then in the article, it says how the mother has to accept it and pull away back, because she don't want her son to be weak or considered a little mama's boy and things of that nature. So society looks at mama's boys as, no, you just can't be that. You gotta be tough. You're not tough. So, with that being said, then it kind of brings me to the topic of homosexuality and things of that nature, and homophobia. How that's born out of when you challenge the gender narratives and you decide that people decide that you are different from them because your sexuality preferences. And all in all, you may or may not be as masculine as society would say that you have to be. You might take on the feminine traits, which is perfectly fine, but that shouldn't deem you as different, although society is led to believe that you are. Take, for instance, on the popular show Empire, when Lucius Lyon's son was caught dressing like a lady. He had on a dress, the high heels, and so forth and so on. He got so upset and threw the little boy in the trash. Saying that that is not welcome, because Lucius didn't grow up seeing that, or he grew up as that was just unacceptable in his society. No one, and if you wouldn't tell anyone that no one was like that. He wanted his man to be that macho. He wanted his son to be a man in his eyes, in his version of a man, which is strong, not weak. And he would call him a little wuss or some of that nature. He wasn't considered a man because he was dressing up like a little girl, and they wasn't having it. But that was just his traditional views and his mindset of what a man should be based on how he was and how probably his father was. But it goes back to the representation that society has, you and the media has. Now, as far as the media portraying women, we see in Killing Us Softly, the speaker goes on to talk about how women's bodies are so overly sexual in commercials, and how they view women as just like sex objects and tools. She's not even a person anymore. She's a bottle. That it gives a perception of we are only our looks, or we are only there to sell whatever objects. We are just sexual objects. We are not smart. We are not intelligent. We are not the boss. We are not assertive, aggressive. We can never take on any of those dominant figures, because we are considered to be just overly sexualized by commercials. And then she goes on to point out as how they portray us. They portray us as passive women, and certain ads you will see the little boy being tough and having the tough face down pat, and then you see the little girl, she's looking down being very passive. And that's kind of how society is viewing women and men. It starts in the ads too. So media definitely does play a huge role in showing our children and showing us what society should be. But I also read that their gender roles and gender differences can take towards pornography, where you see in the movies where there's a black guy and he's totally dominating a white woman. And it gives him a sense of that they did it to the point to where she couldn't take it anymore, being that the dominance, but you never see the role flipped where the woman is totally taking control and she's dominating the man. It's always the other way around. And in a sense, it is kind of saying, well, men are more aggressive, more assertive, more powerful, and women just are there to take it. But then we have movies like Hidden Figures, where you see the woman, a African American woman, standing out, and she's going against the gender odds and roles that they have set aside for African American women and women, period. She's smart, intelligent, and worked for NASA. And you can also see that in the movie there's some parts where when they were stopped by the police officer on their way to work, and he asked them, where are you going, and this and that, and they said, he says, I had no idea. Speaking, he had no idea that they allowed colored women to work at NASA. And then one of the other characters said, well, they let women do quite a few things. And in conclusion, your gender identity is based upon the characteristics that you take, and the media does play a significant role in defining those characteristics.